welcome to Made Academy. This is Priya Menon, your teacher for the course 11th Standard Biology. So I hope you all have gone through the videos of the first chapter and have attempted the test. As you all know the instructions, you have to attempt the test in order to view the next chapter videos. In this manner, you and I will be sure that you have gone through the videos and you are clear with the chapter. Okay, so let's get started with the second chapter, that is biological classification. So as you can see, I have separately underlined the word classification because we are familiar with this word. We have discussed many points regarding this term in the previous chapter. That what is classification, why do we need classification, and we also discuss some examples, right? So the chapter biological classification. So what we will be learning in this chapter is how the knowledge of classification has been applied. Okay, students, you need to understand one thing. Gaining knowledge is important. But more important than that is you have to apply that particular knowledge. Okay, we have to get use from that knowledge, how we can benefit the society from the knowledge we have gained. Okay, so basically the first chapter would be an information regarding this classification and what is it about and everything. In this chapter we have seen, or we will see, that the classification, how it has been used to create the different taxonomical hierarchy. We will be discussing different kingdoms. We will be discussing the basic characteristics of the members of that particular kingdom. Okay, so one more thing, that when we get to learn, or when we start to learn something, we need to know the past of that particular thing or topic or any information, that how did we acquire this information, or what was the question, what was the curiosity that led to this information, or how did we reach this information. So as we all know, a basic characteristic of a scientist or a person who is interested in science should be curiosity, to know what it is or how it is. Okay, so we need to know how the information of classification, of where all it started, the process we need to know. Okay, so classification, as we had discussed earlier, the concept of it is very basic, is to classify so that our work becomes easier. Okay, so right at the start, the humans used to classify various organisms, things, according to their use. Okay, so they used to first categorize or classify according to their food needs, according to their shelter needs, according to their clothing needs. That was very basis of classification that took at the ancient time. Okay, then the people started to learn the nature around them, their surroundings. What are the other species of nature? How can we classify into different groups? Then the hierarchy level or the taxonomical hierarchy level was created. So the first one to start or create the two group was Aristotle. Okay, so Aristotle was the first person to categorize the organisms into two groups. That was very basic, plants and animals. Okay, the basis of that particular classification was based on morphology. Okay, how it looked, what was the appearance. Okay, like for example, in plants he categorized herbs, shrubs and trees. Okay, based on their height. Okay, then in animals he categorized on the basis of the appearance of the blood color. Okay, he categorized animals into two groups, the one which is having red blood and another with other colored blood. Okay, as you all know, there are different colors of blood. If I give you an example, octopus has blue color blood, okay, because of the presence of copper in them. We have red blood because we have hemoglobin in it, okay. So this is how he categorized the organism at the very basic level. So such type of kingdom, okay, the basic kingdom is the bigger one. This is something we have discussed in the last chapter. So he took two kingdom classification, and at the time of Linnaeus, okay, Carolus Linnaeus, the one who gave us biological nomenclature, yeah, even he also came up with characteristics to categorize into different, but his type of classification was also two kingdom. But what would be the difference? The basis, the characteristics Aristotle took and Linnaeus took, it was different. Okay, he added on more characteristic to categorize it, but still the number of kingdom he created was 2. So this was how the kingdom classification or creation of the groups were made. Okay, so then after again there were many people who added on many characteristics. Okay, so before getting into the 5 kingdom classification or the 6 kingdom classification, we need to question, so why there was a need to more complex or more categories into it. Now the reason is because the only 2 kingdom classification was not able to differentiate between the prokaryotes, eukaryotes, between the unicellular, multicellular, okay, between the autotrophic, between the heterotrophic. These differentiation was not happening in this 2 kingdom classification. Now see, because our biodiversity is huge, okay, and we have variety of organisms that even range in very different sizes, their properties, their characteristics, everything is in a huge variety. So do you really think that can be included in just 2 kingdoms? No. So that was the reason people went on learning about the basics, about the characteristics of different organisms, so more and more categories can be made and organism can be easily classified and can be learned in a easier manner. Okay, so 2 kingdom we saw, that was by Aristotle and Linnaeus. Now R.H. Whittaker, he introduced 5 kingdom classification. Okay, 5 kingdom classification. So he created 5 categories on the basis of what? Okay, we just discussed how did Aristotle categorize the organism. Here we will see how R.H. Whittaker, or what were the parameters that were taken to create the 5 kingdoms. So the first was cell type, cell wall, then nuclear membrane, then mode of nutrition. Okay, mode of nutrition. Okay, so these were the characteristics that were taken. We will discuss in detail. We'll take each parameter when we will be discussing each kingdom. So don't worry about that. So cell type, when we say it is eukaryotic or prokaryotic. Okay, or prokaryote. Cell wall, when I say, whether it is absent or present. If it is present, what is the composition? Now, why? Because as people were learning about organisms, what did they observe? Like when all the fungi, algae, everything were under plant kingdom, and when they were learning about them, they saw that cell wall composition of fungi was different. Cell wall composition of plants were different. Okay, even their mode of nutrition was different. That is how a separate kingdom was created, known as kingdom fungi. We'll get into kingdoms later on. So that is why if it is present, we were going to see what is the composition of the cell wall. Then nuclear membrane, whether it is membrane bound or not, whether it is primitive, whether it is complex, all those things. Actually, this information we'll get right from here itself. Eukaryotes and prokaryotes, because we know what are the basic characteristics under this. Like when do we call an organism prokaryote? When do we call an organism eukaryote? Then nuclear membrane, sorry, we discussed that. Then mode of nutrition, whether it is autotrophic, heterotrophic, saprophytic, all those things will come under this mode of nutrition. So including and learning about all these characteristics, R.H. Whittaker in 1969 came with Phi Kingdom Classification. So we'll see what those Phi Kingdom classifications were. Okay, so it was Monera, Protista, fungi, plantae, and animalia. These were the 5 kingdoms that were included here. Okay, that was Monera, Protista, fungi, plantae, and animalia. Now, before we discussed, actually in this chapter, we will be discussing Phi Kingdom classification system, but we also need to know what is the current type of classification that is being followed. The type of classification that is followed is 3-domain system. 3-domain system, or you can call it as 6-kingdom classification. Yeah. 6-kingdom classification given by Carl Woese. Okay, it was given after this time period. He went on the studies. Okay, students, you need to understand the discovery, the study in science never stops. Okay, that is why we always come up with new information. New things are being discovered at every moment. Okay, so after this time period, when he was in search of characteristics of different organisms, what did he observe? That there were a particular type of bacteria. Okay, before that I'll jot down the 3